Hello there. How are you tonight? Feeling a little restless? Or just tucked in for a cozy scroll under the covers? Well, you've stumbled onto the one bedtime tale that is more intoxicating than warm milk and deeper than a Pharaoh's wine cellar. Tonight, we tiptoe through pyramids, not secrets of ancient Egyptians who, believe it or not, were vibing on herbs, potions, and some mind-bending rituals that would make modern partygoers look tame. Lotus flowers weren't just centerpieces. Sleep temples weren't just nap stations and cats. Oh, they were more than sassy roommates. They were divine trip advisors. So snuggle up, slow your breath, and let your eyelid drift like a papyrus boat on the Nile. By the time we reach chapter 20, you'll either be dreaming of sacred smoke or drooling on your pillow like a well-rested mummy. Let's gently slip into the soft cotton sheets of ancient history. But the soothing kind, not the sort that demands footnotes and dramatic reenactments. Tonight, we wander back over 5,000 years when the air in Egypt was thick with mystery, sandalwood, and more serenity than a lavender-scented spa. Picture this: the Nile lapping gently against its banks, papyrus boats bobbing in the moonlight, a lone priest humming low chants as he drops fragrant petals into an earthen bowl. No rush, no calendar alerts, just rhythm, the heartbeat of the river and the hush of the desert wind. In ancient Egypt, life wasn't all pyramid building and God worshipping. It was also introspection, stargazing, and very, very long naps in the shade. These were the original connoisseurs of the cosmos, folks who stared up at Orion not to plot missions, but to ponder meanings. They looked too serious, rising like a spark of divine caffeine, and whispered to their gods with no expectation of a response. It was about connection, not confirmation, and boredom. Oh, it was sacred. Hours of nothingness birthed dreams, poems, and theories about the afterlife that still mystify us today. Imagine laying on cool stone in a temple, your senses dulled by the scent of myrrh and the softness of moonlight, drifting off as your mind plays tag with eternity. So tonight, as the modern world blinks and buzzes in the background, let's appreciate the slow pulse of Egyptian life, how stillness became spirituality, how sand became sanctuary, and how silence was their sweet lullaby. Close your eyes. The ancient Egyptians didn't just admire the blue lotus. They worshipped it like a scented stairway to somewhere less here. These delicate flowers, blooming along the riverbanks, held more than beauty. When steeped into wines or boiled into balmy brews, they were believed to unlock spiritual visions, ease suffering, and quite possibly make your afternoon nap feel like a conversation with Ra himself. Imagine a priest slipping a lotus petal into a goblet, swirling it slowly, eyes half closed. Not out of laziness, but because cosmic truths are best approached with drowsy reverence. The effects weren't wild, more like fuzzy, peaceful. A sweet tickle behind the eyes, followed by Did that obelisk just wink at me? The lotus didn't just whisper, calm. It sang in metaphors. Its bloom each morning, rising from muddy waters, echoed spiritual rebirth, a symbol of creation, of awakening, a poetic way of saying everything's chill, just rise and glow. So tonight, as your own eyelids rise and fall like petals in moonlight, picture yourself in a white linen tunic, lounging beside the Nile, sipping something mildly mystical while the stars giggle quietly above. Breathe deep, the flowers waiting. Now, ancient Egyptian art isn't just pretty, it's deeply peculiar. Ever notice how the figures all seem ... oddly stiff? That's not because the artists lacked flair, but because they were capturing visions. Not the world as it is, but the world as it was, felt during trance, ritual, or deep meditation. Sometimes likely aided by something more enhancing than meditation alone. Hieroglyphs might look decorative today, but back then they were considered alive. Sacred symbols with divine pulse. Scribes believed that writing was a cosmic act, channeling the gods into physical form. And let's be honest, curious, that kind of pressure would make anyone reach for an ancient herbal aid. Some researchers suggest that Egyptian artisans may have entered altered states, not wild frenzies, just dreamy depths, while crafting murals full of floating eyes, winged beings, and half-human hybrids. Were these visions? Was someone just really, really tired? Or maybe they'd just sniffed too much temple incense. Either way, the art wasn't flat. It was dimensional thought on stone and tombs. Tombs were the original visual mixtapes, calming landscapes, otherworldly journeys, and serene gods with a posture of someone perpetually halfway to a nap. If you fell asleep while looking at these walls, it wouldn't be a mistake. It'd be fulfillment, a spiritual side effect. So, tonight, let your mind wander through those cool stone corridors. Touch the symbols. Listen for echoes. See if the falcon-headed gods wave back, and if they do. Or maybe Chapter 4's medicine cabinet is already open. Close those eyes and float like a glyph in incense. Pharaohs didn't just rule, they reclined. And when aches crept into their royal bones, or their minds grew heavy with cosmic duties, their personal apothecaries sprang into action. These weren't scientists in white coats. They were priest healers, blending root with ritual, herb with hymn, and sometimes adding a pinch of woe. Inside this regal medicine cabinet, mandrake, a root with a reputation, bitter, bold, and rumored to coax the soul into quiet wanderings. Some say a few crushed sprigs in wine caused pharaohs to speak in riddles and snooze, like the gods themselves. Then there was opium, not as a party drug, but as sacred sleep stitcher, the kind of calm that made death feel like a warm bath. And cannabis. It wasn't for concerts, it was for communing with the divine. Softly, dreamily, respectfully. The preparation was art. Mortars and pestle moved slowly, like lullabies in ceramic form. Incantations were murmured with every stir. Healing wasn't about snapping fingers. It was about sinking gently into restoration. And whether the patient got better or just had spectacular dreams, well, both were wins in the temple of medicine. So tonight, as you lay under your own cosmic canopy of comfort, imagine these priestly pharmacists standing around a smoky brazier, whispering cures and crushing lotus petals as they blend body with spirit and sleep with story. Close your eyes, the potion's ready. Temples weren't quiet by accident. They were designed for inner journeys, candlelit paths into the soul, where the scent of burning frankincense wasn't decoration. It was transportation. The smoke rose in loops and spirals, coaxing the consciousness into something a little foggy, a little floaty, and just barely tethered to the mortal world. Now imagine a priest, tall, robed, and slightly cross-eyed from years of ceremonial haziness, standing before a sacred statue. He's muttering something not quite audible, but strangely musical. He's not talking to people. He's talking to other spirits, gods, inner voices with celestial accents. Was he high? Well, let's just say these rituals weren't built on sobriety. Between the herbal inhalations and the trance-inducing chants, there's a decent chance he was spiritually vibing. These priests were like ancient DJs, mixing mood, mist, and metaphysics into a chill blend that kept them aligned with realms beyond. And the whispers, oh, they bounced off sandstone like cosmic secrets. Oracles translated them. Pharaohs trusted them. Commoners feared them. You didn't question a priest who smelled like a spice rack and stared through your soul. You just nodded slowly and backed away into your daydream. So tonight, imagine lying on the cool floor of a temple, shadows flickering above, incense curling around your thoughts like sleepy snakes. You're not just resting, you're drifting between worlds, one breath at a time. Inhale the mystery, exhale the modern. The Egyptian sleep temple. These weren't your average spots for siestas. They were dedicated spaces, meticulously prepared for drifting between dimensions. Walls glowed softly with flickering oil lamps. Priests murmured prayers like lullabies, and the air buzzed gently with incense made of honey, myrrh, and something almost definitely. Here's how it worked. A troubled soul, or someone just craving divine download, would lie back on a ceremonial bed. Not just any mattress, no. These were carved, padded, and spiritually seasoned. The sleeper would be guided through chants, scents, and soft rituals that would gently nudge the mind into a lucid slumber. Not unconscious, but not totally awake either. Think cosmic power nap. This state was called incubation, and it was serious business. You weren't just resting, you were opening portals, receiving messages from the gods, healing through dreams, and maybe getting some astral travel miles along the way. In fact, dream priests would later interpret what you saw, felt, or heard and offer cryptic but comforting advice like the ibis means transformation, or the crocodile forgives you. People would travel for days to sleep in these temples, not for spectacle, not for fame, just to rest in sacred silence and let their minds mingle with eternity. Pretty deep for a nap, huh? So tonight, as your pillow becomes your ceremonial stone slab and your blanket a sacred shroud, let yourself drift not just into sleep, but into something older, wiser, and deliciously mysterious. Nap like a priest, dream like a pharaoh. Step inside a ritual chamber, and the first thing you'll notice, ISNT, the chanting or the statues. The air. Thick, aromatic, alive. Incense coils around your senses like a snake with velvet scales. It doesn't just smell divine. It feels like a warm whisper telling you, something important is happening. The Egyptians weren't burning herbs for fun. They believed the smoke connected worlds. As the scent rose skyward, so did prayers, intentions, even consciousness. Want to talk to a god? First, let the room get foggy. Want the dead to hear your message? Send it with a plume of myrrh. Want your headache to vanish? Try frankincense and a nap. Some ceremonies were so thick with smoke, they were nearly meditative mazes. Picture a priest walking in circles, murmuring ancient syllables, the air flickering gold and gray. Was it hypnotic? Absolutely. Was it meant to be? Oh yes. The mind needed to blur a little, soften its edges, open its third eye, or at least squint hard enough to imagine one. They even had something called the opening the mouth ceremony, where incense played a starring role. This wasn't dental work. It was a rebirth ritual aimed at letting a statue, a mummy receive breath, speech, soul, all through the cloud of ceremonial haze. So tonight, breathe gently. Let your thoughts drift into the smoke. Don't resist the fog. Lean in and let it dissolve your busyness, your tension, your modern velocity. You're safe here, wrapped in scent and silence. Curl up now. The smoke will carry you where dreams begin. Let's be honest, ancient Egyptians were obsessed with what came after death, but not in a gloomy way, more like prepping for the most majestic sleepover imaginable. And they didn't just rely on linen and luck. They packed their tombs with spells, amulets, and the occasional odd ingredient. Wait till we get to crocodile dung. Inside sacred texts, like the Book of the Dead, you'll find spells numbered like chapters, each one aimed at guiding the soul through underworld obstacles, misbehaving spirits, and judgmental gods. You'd think these were horror scripts, but they're soothing. Repetitive chants, soft incantations, and directions like, say this to not be eaten by the serpent. Talk about bedtime boundaries. These magical lines weren't just written, they were performed, whispered slowly, sometimes sung like lullabies with the rhythm of desert winds. Sleep sorcery wasn't loud, it crept gently. Every spell was a layer of comfort, as if they were tucking the deceased in for the longest nap with protective poetry. And oh, the potions. Some brews combined lotus, date wine, garlic, and yes, crocodile dung, apparently to keep demons away. Or possibly just as a very strong suggestion to not wake up again. These weren't thrown together casually. They were ritual blends steeped in intention. Healing, maybe. Hallucinogenic, possibly. Delicious, absolutely not. So tonight, imagine lying in a golden chamber, soft chants floating like feathers, potions bubbling in nearby bowls, and guardians in animal masks watching you drift. It's not creepy, it's ceremonial, calm, eternal. Let your breath slow. These spells don't scare, they soothe. Just one whisper from the priest, and off to the underworld you go. Time now to meet the true rulers of ancient Egypt, not pharaohs, not priests, but purring, whiskered sentinels of the spirit world. Cats weren't just pets, they were cosmic co-pilots. To the Egyptians, every cat had a connection with the divine, particularly with Basta, the goddess of home, healing, and sometimes rather intense partying. Picture a serene domestic temple where a cat lounges lazily next to incense burners, yawning in mystical approval. That wasn't just cute, that was spiritual endorsement. Cats guarded households, temples, dreams, and even tombs. Their presence was believed to repel evil, calm the energies, and guide the souls of the dead to where they needed to be, preferably someplace cozy with endless snacks and no mortal chaos. And their attitude, let's say divine aloofness, runs deep. Some rituals even invited cats into sacred spaces to act as living mediums, as if their mysterious gaze could see through the veil and hiss at anything sketchy from the other side. When a cat curled up beside you, that was a blessing. When it stared straight into a wall for 10 minutes, maybe time to light some protective incense and sleep with one eye open. But most of all, cats embodied serenity. Soft fur, rhythmic purring, that hypnotic stretch as if the world moved slower in their presence. To nap beside a cat was to sink with ancient peace. No drama, just drowsy alignment with universal chill. So tonight, imagine a feline curled at your feet, tail flicking gently with every breath you take. You're not just drifting into sleep. You're being escorted there. Pause first by a guardian who moonlights as a mystical dream concierge. Listen closely. That purring, it's lullabial, level, divine. In ancient Egypt, animals weren't just admired. They were revered, consulted, and occasionally dressed better than the priests. Each species represented a divine trait. Cats for protection, ibises for wisdom, jackals for guidance through death, and crocodiles for, well, intimidation with a spiritual twist. But here's the sleepy twist. Rituals involving animals often induced trance-like states. Priests would mimic animal movements, wear masks, and chant in rhythms that blurred the line between human and beast. It wasn't performance. It was transformation. A slow, deliberate merging of soul and symbol. Imagine a temple ceremony where a priest dons a falcon mask, sways like a bird in flight, and chants in tones that echo like distant thunder. The audience, silent, entranced, breathing in sync with the rhythm. The goal, to become the animal, to channel its essence, to let go of ego and drift into something older, wilder, and deeply peaceful. Even the act of watching these rituals could lull you into a meditative state. The repetition, the incense, the low hum of sacred syllables. It was like spiritual ASMR, and if you nodded off mid-ceremony, that wasn't rude. That was alignment. So tonight, let your mind wander through a temple filled with sacred creatures. Hear the baboons' morning chant. Feel the crocodiles' slow blink. Watch the ibis glide across the water like a thought you forgot you had. You not just sleeping, you sensing with the animal kingdom's ancient wisdom. Let your breath match the rhythm of paws, wings, and scales. You're safe. You're sacred. You're snoozing like a jackal in moonlight. Tonight's chapter hums with the ancient belief that vibration was the language of the divine, and sleep was simply a side effect of cosmic harmony across ancient cultures. From Egyptian temples to Himalayan caves, sound was used not to entertain, but to heal, connect, and transport. Think of it as spiritual surround sound, minus the Bluetooth, the tools of the trade. Sistrums, Egyptian rattles used in temple rituals, believed to awaken divine energy and lull the soul into balance. Singing bowls, Tibetan instruments that produce long, resonant tones, each one tuned to a specific chakra or energy center. Chanting, repetitive, melodic vocalizations that weren't just prayers. They were vibrational maps to altered states. But here's the dreamy part. These sounds weren't just external. They were meant to resonate inside you. The idea was that your body, like a harp, could be tuned, and once tuned, you'd slip into a state of deep relaxation, spiritual openness, and yes, delicious sleep. Imagine lying in a candlelit temple, surrounded by low, droning chants. A bowl hums beside you, its tone vibrating through your chest. You're not thinking, you're not worrying, you're just floating, like a feather caught in a sound wave. Even modern science nods to this. Certain frequencies, like 432 Hz, are said to promote calm, clarity, and healing. Ancient priests didn't have Spotify, but they knew how to drop a beat that made your soul sigh. So tonight, let your breath become a chant. Let your heartbeat sync with the hum of the universe. You're not just sleeping, you're harmonizing with the cosmos. And if you hear a faint ringing in your ears as you drift off, that's not tinnitus. That's the sound of the stars singing you to sleep. The Dream Temple, a place where sleep wasn't just encouraged, it was the main event. In ancient Greece, Egypt, and Mesopotamia, certain temples were dedicated not to waking worship, but to incubation, a ritual sleep designed to receive messages from the gods. These weren't naps. These were cosmic consultations. Welcome to the Temple of Asclepius, Greece. Visitors came seeking healing. After purification rituals, they'd sleep in a sacred chamber. Priests interpreted their dreams as prescriptions from the divine. Sometimes snakes slithered through the room, symbols of transformation and renewal. Don't worry, they were considered friendly. Probably the Egyptian sleep sanctuaries. Priests of Serapis and Imhotep used dream incubation to diagnose illness. Sleep was induced with chants, oils, and sometimes mild narcotics. The dream itself was the diagnosis and often the cure. The Mesopotamian dream oracles, kings and commoners alike, sought guidance through sleep. Dreams were cataloged, decoded, and sometimes dramatized in public rituals. A good dream could mean victory in battle, a bad one. Time to sacrifice a goat. But here's the bedtime twist. These temples weren't just about divine messages. They were designed for sleep. Cool stone floors, soft lighting, rhythmic sounds. The architecture itself whispered, "Close your eyes," and the belief that in sleep the soul wandered freely. It could meet gods, glimpse the future, or untangle the knots of the waking world. Sleep wasn't passive. It was active communion. So tonight, imagine yourself in a dream temple. The air smells of myrrh. A priest hums softly nearby. You lie on a stone bed, wrapped in linen, waiting for the gods to whisper through your dreams. You're not just resting, you're receiving. You're not just dreaming, you're decoding the cosmos. Sleep well, Oracle. The stars are listening. You've meditated with crocodiles, harmonized with cosmic bowls, and now we slip into the velvet shadows of ancient sleep rituals that were, let's just say, not for the daylight hours. Because while many cultures treated sleep as divine communion, others saw the night as a playground for ritual mischief, sensual ceremonies, and moonlit mysteries that blurred the line between sacred and scandalous. The Dionysian dream feasts, ancient Greece, followers of Dionysus, god of wine and ecstasy, held nocturnal rites that began with feasting and ended with trance-like sleep. Music, dance, and a little fermented grape juice loosened the soul. Sleep wasn't the goal. It was the afterglow of divine indulgence. Dreams that followed were interpreted as messages from Dionysus himself, often involving themes of liberation, desire, and wild transformation. Babylonian moon magic. Under the full moon, priestesses performed sleep-inducing rituals that involved scented oils, whispered incantations, and sometimes companionship. The belief that intimacy under moonlight could open portals to prophetic dreams. These rituals were secretive, sensual, and often reserved for the elite or the daring. Roman sleep orgies, yes, really, in certain mystery cults. Sleep was preceded by elaborate rituals involving masked participants, symbolic acts, and a whole lot of incense. The idea was to shed identity, merge with the divine, and enter sleep in a state of euphoric surrender. Not all participants remembered what happened. That was part of the magic. But here's the dreamy twist. These rituals weren't just about pleasure. They were about transcendence. The body was a vessel. The night was a veil. And sleep was the final surrender. A moment when ego dissolved and the soul could roam free. So tonight, imagine yourself in a moonlit courtyard. The air is thick with jasmine. A soft drumbeat pulses in the distance. You lie back on silk cushions, eyes half closed, heart open. You're not just sleeping. You're slipping into a story older than shame. Let the night wrap around you like velvet. Let your dreams be bold, strange, and a little bit wicked. You're safe. You're sacred. You're scandalously serene. Tonight's chapter is hushed, reverent, and wrapped in linen. Because in many ancient traditions, sleep wasn't just a nightly escape, it was a miniature death, a sacred stillness that mirrored the rebirth of the soul. Egyptian tomb sleep philosophy. The Egyptians believed that sleep and death were siblings, both journeys into the unseen. Tombs were designed not just for the dead, but for the dreaming soul. Sarcophagi were shaped like cocoons, with inscriptions meant to guide the sleeper through the afterlife. Even the god Osiris, ruler of the dead, was often depicted in a restful pose, not gone, just transforming. Hindu yogic sleep, yoga, nidra, a practice of conscious sleep where the body rests but the mind remains aware, said to mimic the state between life and death, liminal space of pure potential. Practitioners describe it as a rebirth, waking up with clarity, peace, and a sense of cosmic alignment. Mesoamerican cocoon rituals. Some tribes wrapped initiates in cloth and placed them in dark, quiet chambers. The goal is to simulate death, silence the ego, and emerge spiritually reborn. Upon waking, the initiate was considered transformed, no longer who they were, but who they were meant to be. But here's the dreamy twist. Sleep wasn't feared. It was honored. The stillness, the surrender, the soft unraveling of thought was seen as a sacred reset, a nightly resurrection. So, tonight, imagine yourself wrapped in soft linen, tucked into a quiet chamber carved from stone. The air is cool. The world is silent. You're not disappearing, you're dissolving. And when you wake, you'll be new. Let sleep cocoon you. Let your breath be the whisper of transformation. You're not just resting, you're becoming. Sleep like a phoenix. Rise like a whisper. Now let's meet the ones who watched over your slumber. The gods of sleep, often overlooked, but quietly powerful. These weren't thunder-hurling, war-starting deities. No, these were the soft-footed ones, the whisperers, the dreamweavers. Hypnos, Greek mythology, the Og, sleep god, son of Nyx night, and twin brother of Thanatos death, depicted as a gentle youth with wings on his temples. He touched mortals with a feather to lull them into sleep. Even Zeus couldn't resist his power. Hypnos once tricked him into a nap so Hera could meddle in divine affairs. His cave was surrounded by poppies and murmuring rivers. No light, no sound, just pure, uninterrupted snooze. Somnus, Roman counterpart, similar to Hypnos, but with a Latin flair, often shown reclining in a shadowy grotto, surrounded by dreams fluttering like butterflies. His attendants, quiet, slow-moving spirits who carried sleep dust and lullabies. Morpheus, Greek dream god, son of Hypnos, master of dreams, could take any human form in dreams, delivering messages from the gods. His name lives on in modern sleep aids and sci-fi characters. But in ancient times, he was the divine dramatist of the subconscious. Nanj, Sumerian goddess, protector of the vulnerable, interpreter of dreams. Her temples offered sleep sanctuaries for the poor and troubled, believed to visit sleepers and offer guidance through symbolic visions. Shiva as the cosmic sleeper, Hindu mythology. In some traditions, Shiva is seen as the one who sleeps between cycles of creation. His slumber isn't laziness, it's cosmic reset, the pause before rebirth. When he wakes, the universe begins anew. But here's the dreamy twist. These gods weren't feared. They were welcomed. Sleep was their gift. Dreams were their language. And every yawn, every sigh, every slow blink was a tiny prayer to their presence. So tonight, as you drift off, imagine Hypnos brushing your forehead with a feather. Morpheus crafting your dreams like stage plays. Nanj watching over your soul with quiet compassion. You're not just sleeping, you're communing with the divine. You're part of a lineage of sacred slumber. Close your eyes. The gods are near. It was the setup for divine drama, prophetic plot twists, and scandalous snoozes. Biblical bedtime bombshells. Lot's daughters, Genesis. After fleeing Sodom, Lot falls asleep in a cave. His daughters, fearing extinction, get him drunk and, well, let's just say the family tree got complicated. Samson and Delilah. Samson naps on Delilah's lap. She cuts his hair, betrays him, and hands him over to the Philistines. Moral: never nap near a scheming stylist. Adam S. Rib. God puts Adam into a deep sleep and performs the first divine surgery, creating Eve from his rib. No anesthesia needed, just holy Z, Hindu texts and cosmic naps. Vishnu sleep. The god Vishnu sleeps on the cosmic serpent Shisha, floating on the ocean of milk. While he sleeps, the universe rests. When he wakes, creation begins again. Kumbhakarna, Ramayana, a giant who slept for 6 months at a time. When awake, he was unstoppable. When asleep, he snored like a thunderstorm. His nap schedule was both a blessing and a curse. Chronic. The sleepers of the cave, Surah Al-Kahf. A group of young men hide in a cave and sleep for centuries, protected by God. When they wake, the world has changed. It's a tale of faith, time travel, and divine preservation. Sleep is often portrayed as a mercy, a pause from hardship, a gift from the divine. Buddhist snooze, wisdom. The Buddha warned against excessive sleep, but also taught that rest was essential for clarity. Monks practiced mindful sleeping, lying on their right side, aware of each breath. Dreams were seen as reflections of karma, sometimes offering insight, sometimes illusion. But here's the dreamy twist. Sleep in sacred texts was never just rest. It was revelation, temptation, transformation. A nap could birth a woman, doom a warrior, or preserve a prophet. So tonight, imagine yourself tucked into a scroll-lined chamber. The air smells of parchment and prophecy. You're not just dozing. You're entering a sacred subplot. Let your dreams be bold. Let your sleep be holy. And if you wake up with a new rib or a divine haircut, well, you've joined the ranks of the sleeps inned and sanctified. Now let us zoom in on a single nap, a brief moment of shut-eye that tipped the scales of history. Because sometimes all it takes is one well-timed slumber to alter the course of civilization. Napoleon's pre-battle snooze, battle, snooze, Battle of Wagram, 1809. Hours before facing the Austrians, Napoleon took a short nap under a tree. His generals panicked, but he awoke refreshed, issued a flurry of commands, and led France to victory. He believed in power naps, short bursts of sleep to sharpen the mind. His motto: 6 hours for a man, 7 for a woman, 8 for a fool. Rude, but efficient. Archimedes and the bathtub epiphany. Legend says he was either napping or relaxing when he noticed water displacement, leading to his famous Eureka moment. That sleepy soak revolutionized physics and engineering. Moral: never underestimate the power of a drowsy genius in a tub. The sleep of Constantine. Before a crucial battle, Emperor Constantine reportedly had a dream, a vision, of a cross in the sky with the words in this sign: conquer. He ordered his troops to paint crosses on their shields. He won the battle, converted to Christianity, and changed the religious landscape of Europe forever. All thanks to a divine dream during a pre-battle slumber. The snooze that saved a city, the siege of Syracuse. During a Roman siege, the city's defenders used mirrors to reflect sunlight and blind the enemy. Legend says a Roman commander fell asleep during a key moment, missing the signal to attack. The delay allowed Syracuse to regroup and hold off the invasion. One nap, one missed cue, one saved city. But here's the dreamy twist. Sleep isn't just rest. It's strategy, inspiration, and sometimes divine intervention. The right nap at the right time can sharpen a mind, birth a religion, or save a civilization. So tonight, as you drift off, imagine yourself as the sleeper who tips history, your dreams, blueprints, your breath, battle plans, your pillow, a throne of possibility. Sleep like a strategist, dream like a conqueror, wake like a legend. Now we tiptoe into the velvet-draped chambers of the secret sleep societies, mysterious groups that believed sleep wasn't just sacred. It was elite. These weren't your average bedtime clubs. They were invitationally circles of mystics, monks, and moonlit misfits who treated sleep like a spiritual art form. To join, you didn't need wealth or status. You needed the ability to dream deeply, sleep consciously, and sometimes snore in rhythm. The Dreamwalkers of Alexandria, a rumored sect of Egyptian mystics who practiced shared dreaming. Members trained to enter lucid states together, meeting in dreamscapes to exchange wisdom. Initiation involved sleeping in a chamber filled with lotus smoke and chanting until your dreams synced with the group. Their motto, "We meet where minds melt." The Order of the Velvet Eye, Medieval Europe. A secret society of monks and scholars who believed sleep was the gateway to divine truth. They wore blindfolds embroidered with stars and slept in rotating shifts to maintain a constant stream of dream revelations. Their journals, written in half-conscious scrawl, were said to contain prophecies, poetry, and recipes for sleep-inducing teas. The Lucid Brotherhood, 19th century Paris. Artists, poets, and philosophers who gathered in candlelit salons to discuss their dreams. They believed that true creativity came from the subconscious, and sleep was the key to unlocking genius. Members practiced dream seeding, planting ideas before sleep and harvesting insights upon waking. Their meetings often ended with group naps and soft jazz. The Silent Yawners, modern myth. A rumored online collective that shares dreams anonymously, believing that global consciousness can be shaped through sleep. No names, no faces, just dreams. Their symbol, a half-closed eye surrounded by stars. Are they real? Maybe. Are they dreaming right now? Definitely. But here, the dreamy twist. These societies weren't about secrecy for secrecy as sake. They were about protecting the sacred art of sleep, treating it not as laziness, but as luminous exploration. So tonight, imagine slipping into a velvet robe, entering a candlelit chamber, and lying beside fellow dreamers. You're not just sleeping, you're joining a lineage of nocturnal navigators. Close your eyes. The society awaits. What were pyramids for? And start whispering, were they built to lull the gods to sleep? Because curious, some believe the Great Pyramids weren't just tombs or monuments. They were cosmic tuning forks, designed to vibrate at frequencies that induce deep, restorative sleep. Yes, we're talking about architectural lullabies. The sleep theory of the Great Pyramid. Some fringe theorists claim the pyramid's dimensions align with the Schumann resonance, a natural frequency of Earth's electromagnetic field. The idea, Enter the pyramid, lie in the king's chamber, and let the stone sing you into slumber. Ancient sleep spa or cosmic cradle, you decide. Sacred geometry and sleep. Pyramids weren't just triangles. They were mathematical symphonies. Ratios like the golden mean and pi appear in their design, which some believe creates a calming, harmonizing effect on the human body. Sleep researchers, the eccentric kind, have experimented with pyramid-shaped beds, claiming better dreams and deeper rest. Nap like a pharaoh. Egyptian priests reportedly used sleep for divination, lying in sacred chambers to receive visions. Some rituals involved sleeping near sacred relics or beneath star-lined ceilings. The belief: sleep was a portal, and pyramids were the launch pads. The hum beneath the stone. Acoustic studies of the Great Pyramid reveal strange resonances in its chambers. Some frequencies match those used in modern sound therapy. Low, droning tones that soothe the nervous system. Imagine lying in a stone chamber, surrounded by silence, until the walls begin to hum. Modern pyramid sleep pods. Yes, people have built pyramid-shaped sleep pods. Some claim they reduce insomnia, enhance lucid dreaming, and even align your chakras while you snore. Are they scientifically proven? Not really. Are they aesthetically fabulous? Absolutely. So, tonight, picture yourself inside a pyramid, not as a mummy, but as a dreamer. The stone breathes, the geometry whispers, and your brain begins to hum in harmony with the cosmos. Sleep isn't just rest, it's resonance. Forget the image of Napoleon as a stoic strategist hunched over maps by candlelight. In this chapter, Curious, we explore the lesser-known truth. Napoleon Bonaparte was a sleep-deprived genius, and his erratic bedtime habits may have changed the course of history, for better or worse. The emperor's sleep schedule. Napoleon famously slept only 3 to 4 hours a night, often napping in short bursts throughout the day. He'd rise at midnight, pace his tent, scribble orders, and then doze off again before dawn. His aides were constantly exhausted, trying to keep up. Some reportedly collapsed from sleep deprivation while he marched on. The Midnight March to Austerlitz, 1805. On the eve of one of his greatest victories, Napoleon refused to sleep. Instead, he walked among his troops at 2 a.m., whispering encouragement and inspecting formations. His opponents assumed he'd be sluggish come morning, but he launched a surprise attack at dawn, catching them groggy and unprepared. Victory was swift, and some historians credit his insomniac vigilance as the key. Napoleon's bedtime quirks. He preferred sleeping on a hard military cot, even in palaces. He often napped fully dressed, boots on, ready to leap into action. His valet once described him as a man who slept like a fox. eyes closed, ears open. When sleep deprivation backfired during the disastrous Russian campaign, 1812. His erratic sleep and overconfidence led to poor decisions. He misjudged the timing of retreats, underestimated fatigue among troops, and ignored warnings, all while running on fumes. Some argue that had Napoleon slept more, he might have preserved his empire. Was he a sleep genius or a sleep casualty? Modern sleep scientists debate whether his short sleep was natural or pathological. Some speculate he had biphasic sleep, a pattern of segmented rest that mimics ancient sleep cycles. Others say he was simply burning out and his empire crumbled under the weight of his own sleepless ambition. So tonight, as you tuck in, remember, even emperors need rest. And sometimes the most powerful move isn't a midnight march, it's a well-timed nap. And so, the candle flickers low in Napoleon's tent. The maps are folded. The boots are finally off. Outside, the battlefield sleeps beneath a blanket of mist. And inside, even the restless emperor surrenders to the quiet pull of dreams. Tonight, you've marched through midnight strategies, whispered with soldiers in the dark, and tiptoed through history's most sleep-deprived triumphs. But now, it's your turn to rest. Let the echoes of distant drums fade into lullabies. Let ambition soften into comfort. And let your dreams be grand, not of conquest, but of peace. Sleep well, the empire of dreams awaits. Good night.